I'm Exa, and thanks for checking out my channel. I love all things designer, especially when I can get them for a good bargain, which is how I ended up with this pair of Valentino rack stud flats. Now obviously they're a little bit worn in because I did get them used for a good deal, so that's completely okay with me. But what I want to do is kind of freshen these guys up. First, we need to do a little bit of cleanup on the inside because they're a little too dirty for me to put on my feet. And I'm actually going to give them a whole makeover because I really love the color combination of this pair. And that's what I'm going to turn these guys into.
So to clean out the insides, I'm actually going to be using acetone. I would recommend that you start with a more normal like fabric or leather cleaner or like a household kind of fabric upholstery cleaner first. But these shoes were really dirty and they aren't really like a colored inside. It's mostly just the kind of natural leather color. So it's totally fine to use the acetone to clean out the inside. You just want to make sure that once you're done, you're going to condition it with a leather conditioner to keep it nice and soft. And I'm also using the acetone as well to kind of clean out the labels. For the label, you can actually just use a bleach water mixture as well, and that should lighten up and clean some of the stains out of the label. So if you look right around the edge of the label, you can see how much of a difference it makes on this leather. If you're going to do this, please be careful of any printed on serial codes or date numbers on the inside of the shoe because the acetone will pull that off of the shoe. Just look at the difference. The top one hasn't been touched and the bottom one has been cleaned. To prep the shoes, I'm actually going to use the same acetone and wipe the whole outside areas where I'm going to paint and dye them. If a little bit of pigment comes off, do not be alarmed because we are going to be covering it. But that said, if you have any sections you don't want to be changing the color of, try not to get any acetone on them because it could affect the color and the sheen of those areas. I found if you're going around small details like these rock studs or around zippers or rivets or any other kind of metal detailing on the shoe, it's really helpful if you can use a Q-tip to get around them instead of trying to use a larger paper towel. And you do want to make sure that you're very careful in covering the whole surface because we don't want to have any leftover dirt or oils on the surface because that will make the dye and paint not adhere as well. Next, I'm just going to mask off the inside of the shoe so that way I don't get any of the dye to drip into the inside of the shoe. You want to make sure you're pressing this down really firmly so that way no dye can kind of seep in. If you've watched some of my other videos of dyeing stuff, you can see I'm generally pretty bad at taping this, so hopefully I am improving and I do better with this project than the last few. Also, if you are just dyeing a section and you don't want dye on both sides of the section, you want to make sure that you're masking off the other side too. I'm not for this since I'm going to be covering the main portion in a paint, which can cover the dye of any that drips on there. I'm not going to bother masking that. Alright, so we're going to get started with the dye. I'm using a paintbrush for application since I am going around these studs instead of one of those like cotton ball applicator things that you normally see with leather dyes. But if you are doing a bigger section, obviously you can go ahead and use that or a cotton ball or paper towel or something else. So I'm just going to carefully place the dye on this hole trim section, making sure that I'm getting the edges where it kind of folds over on top of the leather on the main part of the shoe, as well as that top rim edge, just so it's all evenly colored. So here you can kind of see where there's two coats on the front, one coat on the side of the shoe, and then obviously none on the back. So depending how dark of a color you're going, you're probably going to need to do more than one coat of this to get the pigment as dark as you would like it to be. And then once you're done with one shoe, you can go ahead and do the other one. Ta-da! Now I have the whole shoe covered in the dye, and I'm going to let that dry before I clean off the excess dye from these studs. And grand reveal, I actually did a pretty good job masking it off this time and did not get dye dripping down the sides of the inside of the shoe, and I'm pretty darn proud of myself. So the great thing about these metal studs is that the dye obviously does not soak into them. It's just kind of like sitting on top as a layer. So I can use my cotton ball or like your fingers even to just kind of gently wipe away the excess dye off of that surface. And I believe if you're using a kind of like coated sealed plastic, it should probably do the same thing. But you might want to test it on one first before you accidentally cover the whole thing and possibly dye them. It does take a little bit of patience to do this. It probably took me an hour to clean off all of the studs on both pairs of shoes. But here you can see the difference. The top shoe has been cleaned off and the bottom one obviously hasn't. And now it's time to use our Angelus white acrylic paint to cover the rest of the shoe. So I always want to start with thin, light layers around this. It's going to adhere best than trying to do thicker layers. Those tend to crack on the surface more. And you want to take your time and be really careful going around the edges of the other sections of your shoe. And you can always mask them off too if you are worried about slipping and getting a little bit of the paint onto the soles or the part that you have just dyed. I apparently like to live on the edge though, and am not going to mask it off, so here's hoping that I don't mess it up. So here's one layer done. Obviously it's very thin and uneven, so once that dries we're going to do another coat. And I'm just doing the same process over again once it's dried to cover the whole surface. You're probably going to need more than two coats if you are going from a dark color to a light color or a really light color to a really dark color. Anything with more color variation means you're probably going to need more coats to get that full, even look across the whole thing that doesn't have any like visible brush strokes or lighter spots on it. I ended up doing 5 or 6 coats to fully cover these shoes. Dun dun dun! I think they came out really good. I'm actually a little bit surprised. Obviously, if you watch a lot of my videos, you know I am frequently surprised with the outcome of my projects because I never expect them to go as well as they do. but these are so freaking cute now, and they're just nice and clean and white and super fun.
So guys, I love how these came out, and I really hope that you do too. And just remember, the options are as endless as your imagination when it comes to refinishing shoes. It doesn't take a lot of skill or a lot of supplies to be able to do this. All you're going to need is some patience and imagination, and you can remake any pair of shoes into something fantastic. So as always, please like and subscribe to my channel, and if you try out your own shoe makeover project, I would love to see it, so send it to me on Instagram. And until next time, I hope your day is as beautiful as you are.